Oh my goodness, I haven't been live in such a long time. So I thought I'd come live because it's Menopause Awareness Month, isn't it? And we're coming up to Menopause Awareness Day on Friday, and I haven't been saying very much. And I think I probably need to come out and say things about menopause because I have this New York Times recommended book as one of top seven top books about menopause, written by me, and I want more women to read this. I want more people to read this, actually. I want everybody to read it because it's bloody good. It's bloody good. It's had some really good reviews. It was recommended in the New York Times. It's called Magnificent Midlife, Transform Your Middle Years, Menopause and Beyond. And I didn't want to just call it about menopause because it's not. It's about so much more. It's about how we transition through midlife and how hopefully we can move into our magnificent next chapter. And we're so much more than our hormones. Seriously, I mean, I'm delighted that we're talking more about menopause. But it's still, and sometimes it seems to be getting even worse and more negative. So when I wrote this, it's 3 years ago now, I wrote it because nobody else was writing about midlife and menopause in the way that I wanted to write about it. And so I poured my heart and soul into this book. And you can get it from me on my website, magnificentmidlife.com/book. You can get the ebook or the audiobook narrated by me, which is also quite good. And you can get that on my website, or you can get a hard copy from any good online bookstore, including Amazon, which is the fastest. You can probably get that in the UK. You can get it overnight. I've just heard that Spotify has increased their book listening to facilities across Europe, in Luxembourg and Belgium and France and places. So if you're in those countries, you can listen to my book on Spotify if you have a Spotify subscription. You can listen to it for free, which is really rather good, I think. So obviously I'd rather you paid me to listen to it, but you know, it all comes round, swings and roundabouts. Eventually Spotify will pay me a penny per listen, you know, but that's okay. It's okay, because frankly, I just want more people to read this and listen to it. There's only one other person that I have discovered who's writing about menopause in a slightly similar way to me, and that is Kate Codrington. And we have now done 2 wonderful events at the Vagina Museum on a feminist perspective of menopause, on an empowering perspective of menopause, on a menopause happens for us, not just to us. You know, it is an opportunity. And by the way, I should say, if you can hear a purring noise, it's because my cat is on my lap. He can't believe his luck that I've sat down on the sofa in my office and he's sitting on my lap. So anyway, Kate and I, we like to stir things up, and we are fed up with this menopause as a deficiency narrative. We are fed up with this menopause as a gateway to ill health narrative. We really have I've had enough of it. I mean, honestly, menopause can be difficult, but it is a natural part of life. And if I write about this in here, I write about lots of things, but I write about ageism in particular, because I believe that gendered ageism is at the back of all of our doubts and worries and concerns about menopause. If we, from the year we were born, and we're aging all of our life, it doesn't just suddenly start that we start to age in our 40s or 50s. We're aging from birth, right? And if we had this idea that aging was a good thing, that we weren't fed all these anti-aging products, all these hair dyes, if we weren't led to believe that menopause and midlife was the beginning of the end, but actually a transition into a new phase of life, then I honestly believe that we wouldn't have such an issue with menopause. I also believe that we would look after ourselves better. We would see that we have a long lifespan where we are supposed to be continuing to make a huge difference to the world. And if you don't believe me, I'll tell you the story about the whales, right? I'm always telling the story about the whales, and I write about the whales in here. It was Darcy Steinke who told me about the whales. And basically, we know for sure that 2 creatures on this planet go through menopause. The jury's out on elephants and tigers and lions. Think matriarchal society. Possibly there's menopause there as well, but we don't definitively know. We do know that human females go through menopause. Anybody with a uterus, in fact, is going to go through menopause. And whales go through menopause. And when whales go through menopause, they become the leaders of their pods. And the pods that are led by the postmenopausal female whales do much, much better than the pods that are not led by postmenopausal female whales. The younger male whales die off because they're not considered as valuable as the postmenopausal female whales. I believe that we can extrapolate that in the same way that postmenopausal whales are more valuable to their communities post-menopause, that we are also more valuable to our communities and the world as leaders than as breeders. Okay? We're not supposed to have the same hormonal profile post-menopause as we have before menopause. We're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be different so that we are not so geared to just nurturing everybody else instead of ourselves. I like to call estrogen the biddable hormone. It keeps us biddable. It keeps us doing, what we're supposed to do, which is reproduce, whether or not we reproduce. But that's our role, technically speaking, and that we nurture everybody else. And when we have a bit less of the biddable hormone, it doesn't go away completely. This is another fallacy. We don't drop off some estrogen cliff. But guess what? If we don't look after ourselves, then the body will prioritise production of stress hormones in the adrenal glands rather than production of estrogen for us post-menopause. Anyway, so it drops away, but it doesn't go away completely. And we are supposed to have a different hormonal profile. And most of us will have exactly the right amount of hormones as we are supposed to have for life as a post-reproductive female. All right? So we don't need to worry we're going to get all these diseases. There have been so many statements put out by the North American Menopause Society about what HRT is prescribed for, the UK Menopause Society about, not over-prescribing estrogen at the expense of progesterone, because if you have a womb, you have to have progesterone, otherwise you're at risk of womb cancer. And it's the wild, wild west at the moment, honestly. And when I say things like this, when I talk about this, I get into trouble because people think I'm anti-HRT. Well, guess what? I went on HRT for 7 years. Shall we say that again? I went on HRT for 7 years. And that was because I was given an early menopause diagnosis at 41. I didn't want to go on the menopause, the hormone therapy, but eventually I did because I had a bone density scan and I was found to have borderline osteopenia in my hip. And I was under Nick Panay's team, actually, at Queen Charlotte's Hospital in London. And they wanted me to go on the hormone therapy to protect my bones and heart because I had significantly less years of estrogen running through my body, right? And the advice I was given then, and which I actually think is still the advice that should be given, is that I went on hormone therapy until average menopause age of 51. That was always my plan, always my plan. And in fact, I think my early menopause diagnosis was wrong. I write in my book about how changing my diet and lifestyle, with the help of Dr. Marion Glenville, I actually got my bleeds back for a whole year. Then things went a bit squiffy again, but I did get my bleeds back. And there's a long story about me trying for another child. I didn't get the other child, but this is my baby. This is my baby, and my podcast is my baby. And if you like, the things I'm saying, I think you'll love the podcast because it's called the Magnificent Midlife Podcast, and it's bloody brilliant as well. It's really good, and there's 170 episodes, which is just mind-blowing, quite frankly. So where was I? Can't remember. I was rambling. Oh, about HRT. So yes. So I took HRT, and what I'd like to just, I think I'll read a little bit about, because the theme for this year is menopause hormone therapy, and we're going to talk about the HRT or the MHT in this. But I thought I'd just read this to you, and I apologise for this because you can see I've got my ring light on if I go like that. So I'll try and keep it down so you don't get the ring light. Okay, so HRT and me. As I've said, I have discovered many diet and lifestyle changes that can allow us to have a better experience of menopause. Some people believe menopause to be a medical condition, an estrogen deficiency that needs fixing. In line with the book Feminine Forever, some believe HRT is the answer to everything menopause related and even long-term women's health. I am not anti-HRT, far from it. I was advised to take HRT after the early menopause, at least until the average menopause age of 51. This was to protect my bones and heart from fewer years of estrogen. Discovering I had borderline osteopenia in my hip after a bone scan finally persuaded me to take HRT. Sorry, I've said that already, but anyway, I've written it in here. A word here on terminology again. When I read the Menopause Manifesto by Dr. Jen Gunter, I realised there is a new and I believe better term for HRT, menopause hormone therapy, or MHT, which is the theme of this year's World Menopause Day. So Dr. Gunter writes, MHT was called hormone replacement therapy, or HRT, for years, but that name falsely implies that estrogen or other hormones are missing because of a medical condition, and the low levels of estrogen after menopause are biologically abnormal, which they're not, which I've told you already. Some may argue that the increased risk of cardiovascular disease after menopause suggests it's a disease, but they're going to lose that argument. As discussed previously, if you follow that logic to its conclusion, then being a man is a disease. The messaging matters. I love Dr. Jen Gunter. She continues, it's fair to use the term replacement for women with primary ovarian insufficiency or for those women who have their ovaries surgically removed before natural menopause, as estrogen production has stopped prematurely. That was my case, not the surgical, but it did stop early. Well, we don't know about that, but technically the test I had at the doctor's said that, and then the doctor told me that, and then I went off on a path, although I don't think that was right. But anyway, I digress. But otherwise, MHT should be discussed for what it is, a medical intervention, not a replacement. Following Dr. Genter's argument, HRT was the right term for me, having gone through early menopause, but not necessarily for older women. I'm going to use the term hormone therapy instead of HRT from now on, as I hope most of my readers will not be going through early menopause like me, and I like Dr. Genter's point of view. and then I carry on, and there's loads here on gendered ageism, on how menopause is approached in different parts of the world, because we assume that our experience is universal, and guess what? It ain't. But it's particularly bad in Anglo-Saxon countries, and I write about why that is in here as well. So America, the UK, Australia. There's quite a lot of gendered ageism there as well, isn't there? And not a lot of natural phytoestrogens being eaten, and lots of processed food and alcohol and being overweight and things like that. So I write about all that in here. So thank you. I think several people have hung around, haven't they? They've hung around and listened to me witter on. The cat is still here listening. Yes, he seems to have quietened down a little bit now. So thank you very much for hanging out and for listening. And please, just stay curious. There are so many people out there spouting big, horrible, negative narratives. And the ones like me who are spouting something a little bit more positive and empowering, sometimes we're not on social media so much because it just drives us nuts. It drives me so nuts. And it takes it takes a lot of energy to come on here because, I may get abuse for what I'm saying. I often do. And so I've sort of stepped back a lot from social media. But I realise I can't really do that because it's Menopause Awareness Month and we're here to raise awareness about menopause. So thank you very much. And get my book, listen to my podcast, get my newsletter. So my newsletter every week, I try and do it every week. I write about what's inspiring me, what information I've got out there. It's about midlife. It's about interesting things that are happening. It's a little bit about menopause, but not massively about menopause, because we are so much more than our hormones. So there you go. Thank you very much. And I'm going to say bye-bye for now.